part of my job in the school is the academic lead for the admissions for the Bachelor in Social Work programme. So before I joined the university, I worked for a long number of years as a social worker in children's services in Belfast. And today we're joined by Katie Ann, who is one of our current relevant graduate route students. So she's going to give you a bit of an insight into what her experiences on the programme have been like. Katie Ann has just finished quite a heavy academic semester, and on the 6th of January is going to start her placement. So she'll tell you all about that. So today what we wanted to do was to let you know a little bit about the Bachelor of Social Work degree programme, in particular our relevant graduate route. So we have another route for the BSW, which is our undergraduate route, which is a 3-year programme. But our relevant graduate route is a 2-year sort of fast-tracked programme to getting your Bachelor in Social Work qualification. And it's to recognise that people on relevant degrees, and you've all been invited because you're studying for a relevant degree, have already got some of the knowledge that we teach that is foundational to our social work curriculum. And therefore you can kind of like take a year that you don't need to study on this degree program. And the Bachelor in Social Work is your gateway into working in the social work profession. And I'll say a little bit more about that. So really all I wanted to do today was to say a little bit about what social work is, give you a little bit of an insight into what social work is, what social workers do, give you a bit of an overview of the relevant graduate route course, the curriculum, how it's structured. Let Katie Ann give you a bit of an insight into the course from her perspective as a student on the course, and then talk you through a bit about the application process and some tips for getting ready for your interview if you are going to apply for this programme. So I'll just work my way through this. Please do I mean, I see that your mics and that are all muted, but we've got the chat here. So if you've got any comments or any questions as we go through, just type them into the chat. If you've got any questions for Katie Ann, type those into the chat and we can put those to her. And at the end of this, if there's anything that you feel that we haven't covered or you've still got queries about them, then please do put those into the chat, or you can email us afterwards. So I hope that's okay for what we're going to do. Just to say again, welcome. I know it's a very busy time. Oh, Laura is saying in the chat that you're welcome to unmute and ask questions verbally also at the end. Okay, so this session is being recorded for people who can't come today. So your microphones and videos are muted and turned off by Laura while we're recording, and then you can switch them on at the end if you want to talk with us. So I don't know how much you know about social work, what social work is, what social workers do, but it's a global profession, and this is our global definition of social work. So they call it, this is the definition from the International Federation of Social Work. It's a practice-based profession and an academic discipline. And so that means that people like me who work in a university and do research can still call myself a social worker, because I do the academic side of social work. And a lot of what you learn on our programme and on the RGR route, half your degree is academic study. But it's also a practice-based profession. And so this course is to equip you with the knowledge, skills and values that you need to enter into that profession and to work as a professional and practicing as a social worker is part and parcel of our degree programme. And the purpose of that profession is to promote social change, social cohesion and empowerment and liberation of people. So social work is very much based on a set of principles and values, and those are the principles of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility and respect for diversity. But it's underpinned by certain sets of knowledge, so theories of social work, social sciences, humanities, and the knowledges that arise up from our communities and lived experience. And as a set of skills, what you need are the skills to engage with people, but also to engage with the structures, the social structures within which all of us live. and through that communication with people, with groups, and with the organizations that we all live within, to address life challenges and enhance people's well-being. So that's the internationally, that's what social work is, what they do. And so you'll see there that there are foundations to your social work practice. You need knowledge. You need to know what it is you're supposed to be doing and why you're doing it. You need skills. So that's your ability to put your knowledge into practice. You need values, and that's not just about what you do, but it's the way that you do it that is important. And then there's the process. So the procedures that you're meant to follow, the actions that you're meant to take in order to achieve a particular aim. And the social work course addresses all of those: knowledge, skills, values, and the processes of social work. So what does that look like in practice in a social worker's day-to-day life? Well, it means that you'd be working with individuals, you're working with their families, you're working with groups who are facing challenges, and your role is to help and enable them to find solutions to the problems that they face. Social work is also a key part of society's kind of mechanism to manage and control social problems and to safeguard vulnerable people from the risk of harm. So what you need to be able to do is to communicate with children and adults. You need to be able to build effective relationships with people pretty quickly. And you need to be able to make decisions in a context of uncertainty, because quite often, like, you don't have a crystal ball. So using all of your knowledge and putting that together into a robust assessment to work out what you need to do and make decisions with people. So we talk about the social work practice continuum, and we have a module called Introduction to Social Work, which is the very first module that you take that starts on the first Monday of the very first semester. And in one of our tutorials this year, we were talking about, if you tell any of your family or friends that you are a social worker and you're training to be a social worker, what is it that they think that you're going to do? And a lot of people say, they think that you're going to be taking people's children off them. And that is kind of like this perception that is the bulk of what social workers do. And the reality is that part of the social work role is about working with people who are at risk of harm and making sure that they are safeguarded from that harm. And sometimes that means that you have to take actions that are contrary to what people might want. And sometimes, particularly if it's someone who's at risk in relation to mental health, that sometimes can mean a restriction of their liberty. However, that is not all that social workers do. And you'll see here from this continuum that it is the smaller part of what your social work practice is about. By and large, the bulk of what we do is about promoting people's rights to independence, enabling people to live their lives in the way that they want to live them. And quite often that means that people need some special support, some extra support, or specialist support that other people don't necessarily need. And our role is to provide that quickly, so that their issues and difficulties and challenges don't escalate or get any worse. Sometimes we need to work more intensively with people, and we always aim to do that in a person-centered way. And person-centered way just basically means that we try to do that in a way that respects people's own choices and preferences. Quite often we have to manage risk. And so if a child or a young person or an adult is at risk of harm, then part and parcel of the social work role is to try and find ways, in partnership with their families and the people around them, find ways to make sure that they will stay safe and be kept safe. So that's broadly the package of what social workers do, regardless of whatever setting that they're working in. And then we talk about the social work process. So what that looks when you come to work with any individual or family is that you assess their needs. Okay. An assessment just means working out what the issue is, working out what they might need and how you might go about meeting that need, and doing that in partnership with the person. Planning a series of actions, and then carrying out those actions to meet the needs that you've identified in your assessment, and then reviewing and evaluating that. And again, what that actually looks like really varies depending on the people that you're working with and the setting that you're working in. But that's broadly what all social work looks like when we think about the process. I don't know if there's any questions about that so far and you want to put in the chat, but I thought it might be helpful to you to just get a little bit of an insight into the day-to-day working of a social worker's life. So we had a video here that was made with, this was made about 3 years ago, with some social workers who work in Northern Ireland in children's services. And it really is kind of a day in the life of these social workers. And it's a really good insight, I think, to let you see what they think of their role and what their role is really about. So I'm just going to bear with me while I share this video for you. This video is about, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes long, and the link will be in these slides so you can watch the whole of it yourself, but I'm just going to show you a quick 3 minutes of it. Katie Ann, you can let me know if this doesn't work when I press play here.
I've always had social workers in and out of my family. My mum was a foster carer for, I think it was maybe about 10 years. So I've always had social workers in and out of the house. They come in to see the foster child that's in living with us. But a social worker did come in at one stage, chatted to me. You know, that was actually such a nice thing to do, just to sit down and explain it all to me in a 6-year-old language. As soon as I met that social worker, that was that. I was wanting to be a social worker from like 7 and 8. I have about 7 families now, so I will ring them and tell them that they've been allocated a social worker and arrange to meet them, or there's like the immediate sort of concern where we would go out within 24 hours if there's a severe worry. Generally, whenever we're going out, we are the first point of contact. The majority of the time, really, it's first time they've ever seen a social worker, and sometimes the referrals are malicious or anonymous. Tell them who made it, and that puts us in a bad fit from the beginning. I got allocated a case that needed initial assessment to be completed, so we had 2 wee kids that live with mum. Just depends on the age of the children, really what way you go about that. Getting a bit of a relationship built up in a quick amount of time and not being scary. What do you think? You could draw a picture with me and mummy can go make a cup of tea. It's really scary for smaller kids if I'm sitting beside them just writing everything down. Chat to them like I'm just a person in their house and not a scary person, and then I'll go into the car and go over everything they've said again so that when I go back I can actually write it down.
2 little kids were going to see Contact. They were saying to us that they didn't have an Easter bunny. I says, what do you mean Easter bunny didn't come? And they didn't get any Easter eggs. We didn't get any Easter eggs. And I says, I'm going to have to phone Easter bunny to find out. Lifted the phone and I rang Cameron. Hello, is that Ronnie Honey, Easter bunny? And she just got the cue. The children want to know why they didn't get any Easter eggs. So she says that Ronnie Honey is sometimes a very naughty bunny and sometimes eats the kids' Easter eggs. But she felt really bad this time, so she has purchased them 2 new Easter eggs with a little note from the Easter bunny. So they're coming in today to collect those. Their wee faces, they were just in complete awe, shock. And I think Mum had some really confusing conversations about how the social work boss was speaking to the Easter bunny. So we had to clarify for Mum what actually the context of that story was. You need to care about the child and you need to be able to communicate with that child and find the little ways in. It's the Easter bunny that's important. It's Santa Claus. It's the tooth fairy. If you spend the time talking to that child and building that relationship and building that rapport with them, that's the only way you're going to ever be able to talk to them, for them to ever feel safe to come and tell you the hard stuff. We're dealing with some of the most difficult circumstances that you will find children living in. People hear family intervention and they automatically think, her job, she removes children. There's a misconception and sometimes families think that's what we want to do. That is not my aim. When you get to that point of having to remove a child, for me, I've lost, because our aim is to keep families together and keep children at home safe.
So I'm just going to stop that video there. We could watch all of that video. It is such a lovely video, and the link will be in the slides, or we can maybe put it into the chat now for you to watch the rest of it. But I hope it gives you a little bit of an insight into what the day in a life of a social worker in children's services in Northern Ireland might be like, and maybe change some of your preconceptions. I don't know. Just thinking about, I think that what came through very much whenever those social workers were talking about their job was their degree of respect and concern and compassion that they had, and their desire to support and promote the cohesion of the family, the dignity of that family, the dignity of the children that they were working with. You saw there that they were really taking on board in what way do children need you to communicate with them? What does person-centered for a child mean? And person-centered just really means meeting them at their point of need, communicating in a way that is most appropriate for them. And you saw the social worker in that video doing that. Acting in the best interests of service users and their carers and their families, and promoting equality, ensuring diversity and inclusion, and making sure that the care that they provide is safe, effective, and of a high quality. And I think you really saw from those social workers that they were very motivated to do that, very motivated to make sure that their practice was effective for people. And so whenever we talk about the values that social work is based on, that's really what we're talking about being transparent, about being honest, about being respectful, about promoting dignity, promoting independence, working alongside people, working in partnership with them, and taking responsibility as a professional for your own professional development and the quality of service that you provide. And the Northern Ireland Social Care Council, NISC, I don't know, you might have heard of them or you might not have. So all social work students and all social workers are registered with the Social Care Council, and they really are the overseers of social work practice and social work standards in Northern Ireland. And they publish a document called the Standards of Conduct and Practice for Social Work Students, and they've got a similar document for social work. And it sets out the ways that social workers and social work students have to practice. And this is the list of it, and I've just talked about it. So that's a really interesting and important document for you. It's available on the Northern Ireland Social Care Council website to just dip into and think about. As I said, it's not just about what you do, but it's the way that you do it that is so important. When it comes to our curriculum then, and obviously we have to really look at the knowledge that you bring. So when we talk about values, every essay that you do, every assignment that you do, we ask you to think about what are the social work values that are kind of underpinning everything that you're writing about here. You know, so the essay on my module that Katie Ann has just done, or is just finishing off doing, is talking about meeting the needs of children when they're placed in foster care or kinship foster care, and thinking about the values and ethics of that. So how do you ensure children's rights when they're in that situation? How do you work in partnership with their parents? How do you work with that whole family in a way that empowers them and promotes their dignity, their right to respect for their private and family life, etc. So our social work curriculum is underpinned by that consideration of social work values. And then when it comes to the knowledge that you gain through the curriculum, there's really 3 sets of knowledge that you need, okay? So you need to understand people. All right, so maybe if you have been doing a psychology degree, and psychology is very much part and parcel of this, you understand how people work, you understand child development, adolescent development, and how lives unfold across their life course. But we also have to understand the society and the context in which people live, okay? So None of us develops as an island on our own. And so understanding social policy, the law and how the law frames what social work does and doesn't do, what the law says about families and family life, but also our social context in terms of social policy, the way that social services are structured, the way that other support organisations are structured around people. And then we need to understand how to help. And so we have modules that are about social work practice, like how do you actually intervene in somebody's life? And there are certain models of practice that we follow, and theories of social work practice that we learn about. And then you have to learn how to put all that into action and develop your actual social work skills. And so we have what we call practice learning opportunities, and they are practice placements. And I'll say a little bit more about those. So I like this quote. So recently, there was a review of children's social care services in Northern Ireland, a really extensive review that included the social work programmes. And the author of that review said about our social work programmes that they're wisely and sensibly a generic initial qualifying programme, focused on the development of core social work professional competencies and identities. Introducing social work students to the knowledge base across the spectrum of social work roles. And what that means is that when you finish your degree programme with us, you are equipped to go into any field of social work. When you're with us, you will have 2 different practice placements, and they will be in 2 different settings with 2 different service user groups. But you don't have to go and work with those service user groups. You basically can go and work anywhere in Northern Ireland in any sector of social work practice. So it provides the opportunity for students to decide across the range of social work employment where they might want to work, and it keeps open the opportunity to have a varied career within social work practice. What that looks like, what our curriculum looks like for you if you were on the 2-year relevant graduate route. So your first semester, so there's 4 semesters across 2 years. In your first semester, you take 3 modules at university: Introduction to Social Work and Preparation for Practice Learning. And they are an introduction to what social work is and some of the key methods and theories that we use. Preparation for Practice Learning is an introduction to assessment and actual interactions with people, purposeful conversations with people in order to conduct an assessment and assess risk. And then we also have a module called Law for Social Workers. Then in the spring semester of your first year, from I think it's the 6th of January until May, it is this year, you do an 85-day social work placement in a social work agency. Then in the autumn semester of your second year, you come in and you do 3 modules at university. One is about social work and adult services, one is social work with children and families, and the other is social work in the courts, and that's criminal justice, but also when we have to, for example, apply for a care order to take a child into care. And then your 4th semester, which is your spring semester of your second year, you'll be on your final practice learning opportunity, your social work placement, and that lasts for 100 days. So Katie Ann's got these dates emblazoned on her brain. So Katie Ann, you're starting on the 6th of January in your final placement, and it ends...
Tuesday the 2nd, I think, of June.
of June. Okay, so it's a long time of working in a social work agency. And that's in your spring semester. So everybody has to do 85 days in their first placement, 100 days in their second placement, and that involves direct work with service users and carers. And so you could be placed in any type of agency. So a statutory agency with one of the health and social care trusts. So like the people that you saw in our video, in a family intervention team, undertaking family support assessments with families, or in and Katie Ann's going to talk a little bit about her work. So in a mental health support team where you're going to people's homes, assessing their need and arranging a package of support to meet that need. Or you could be in a voluntary sector agency. So for example, Women's Aid, or we have a lot of partner agencies across a range of voluntary sector agencies. We have people who are placed with Voice of Young People in Care, which is an advocacy organisation for young people in care. We have people going to externs, homeless support projects, for example. While you're there, you will do the same work and follow the same working pattern as everybody who is employed in that team. The difference for you will be that you will be very closely supported and supervised, and you'll have much less actual social work to do than anybody else in that team. So you'll be provided with a practice teacher who's very experienced. You will meet with them weekly, and they will help you develop your learning. If they're not working in the team, there will also be a member of that team who we call your on-site supervisor, and they're the person that you go to with your day-to-day queries. What do I do? What should I do in this case? You don't have to get your own placement, which is a great plus. We have a regional process where we arrange your placement for you. Downside of that is that you don't have choice. We put you where you go, but by and large, students come away from that. Always, I'm surprised at the number of students who said, I didn't think I would like this setting or this sector, but actually I really love it now and I want to go in. I'd really think of going in and working there. And in fact, we also have a lot of students who continue working in their placement location as well. Yeah, so this is just a range of the different places where you might be placed. Children and families in need, children or adults with mental health difficulties, and children or adults with physical illness or physical disability, children or adults with learning disabilities, people who are dealing with addictions or homelessness, older people who maybe have memory difficulties or who are needing intensive levels of care, youth justice, criminal justice, probation board, and the education authority. And there's a little link there on YouTube to a video playlist that gives stories from different students in different placement settings. If you apply to the course and you get ready for interview, we will send you a link also to a booklet that talks you through placements in much more detail. So what do you do when you're there? Well, you carry out statutory social work tasks, and what that means is that there's a lot of what social workers do that we are actually mandated to do. The law says we have to do this. So for example, if social services become aware that a child might be at risk of harm, significant harm, they have a duty to go out and check that out and make sure the child is safe and to ensure that the child is being kept safe, for example. You get placements in two different settings, so you'll not be placed in the same placement twice, but you'll not be placed with the same service user group or the same types of issues twice. You will always be working with other professionals. Social work does not work in isolation. You work very much in liaison with health visitors, GPs, nurses, psychiatrists, a whole range of other professionals. It really gives you an opportunity to think about what diversity and inclusion means in Northern Irish society. You will work with a very wide range of individuals who face a very wide range of challenges in their life. And it'll really help you to think about how the equality legislation plays out in their lives and what that means to them, but actually just the barriers and opportunities that individuals with different characteristics encounter in Northern Irish society. You will be involved in formal decision-making forums. You will be asked to give your opinion and present your assessment to those forums. As a social work student, you don't make decisions on your own or in isolation, okay? So it will never rest with you, the decision-making as to what happens in a person's life. That's always a partnership decision with the person, but it's also a decision that is taken in consultation with your supervisors, but also in consultation with a wider multidisciplinary team. And a lot of what social work does is in group care settings. So some of the group care settings that you will get exposure to and experience in might be in day centres, hospital settings, residential care settings. Some of the features of social work at Queen's, just to kind of pick out for you. So the course is set up that you have scope, you have a certain number of hours across your 2 years that you can invest, and you have to invest in what we call practice development days. And that's your opportunity to kind of take and engage in learning that you're particularly interested in yourself. And we present you with a whole range of different opportunities for doing that. We Also, there are lots of agencies in Northern Ireland who present training, for example. So like mental health first aid, for example, is one of the courses that people sometimes do. Northern Ireland Social Care Council run lunchtime seminars and webinars that people go to. And quite often people then watch. There's quite a lot of films and books that are really relevant and make you think about some of the issues that we encounter in life, and people sometimes watch and read those and do a little reflective account of those as part of their individual practice learning. We have service user and care involvement. That's very important to us. Our citizen educators are all people who have lived experience of working with social workers in their lives. They particularly help us in our preparation for practice learning. They let you practice your interviewing skills on them, which is very kind of them. And then we have an exam at the end of that module where you interview one of our citizen educators, and they help us with that. You do have a personal tutor. Your personal tutor, you get allocated to them from the very start, and hopefully, as long as they don't leave or nothing happens, they're your personal tutor right the way through to the end. So what I've been doing today is I've been setting up meetings. My personal tutor group, like Katie Ann, are all starting their placement on the 6th of January. So I've been arranging meetings for each and every one of them, where I will meet with them, their practice teacher, their on-site supervisor, to make sure that all the arrangements are in place, that all their needs are going to be met on placement. I will go back to them again in the middle of their placement, and I'll hear how things are going, and we take stock of how their placement's going, and that's our opportunity to troubleshoot. So we stay very closely involved with you as personal tutors throughout. Our staff are all social work qualified. Our staff are all registered as social workers with the Northern Ireland Social Care Council, and we're all engaged in social work research. And you saw Sinead in the video. Sinead was the social worker with the short hair and glasses. And a few years ago, she worked with us, myself and Lorna Montgomery on our team, to develop a framework for assessing and enhancing parenting capacity. So helping parents developing their parenting skills when social workers are involved with them in her sector. And she worked very closely with us on that research. So our research provides really important information and evidence for social work in Northern Ireland, but it also keeps us as academic staff very closely connected to the world of practice. This is just, social work at Queen's is actually ranked really highly in social work across the UK, which we're really pleased about. You're all Queen's students, so you know Queen's pretty well. But social work was ranked first in the Complete University Guide 2026, second in the Sunday Times, etc. So we're really pleased that social work at Queen's ranks really highly in terms of social work programs across the UK. In terms of a social work career, there are excellent job opportunities. I think am I missing your, hang on, let me just make sure I'm not missing Katie Ann's opportunity. I'm not. Excellent career opportunities. Across a whole range of sectors, you have such a wide choice and choice of diversity in terms of who you work with, adults, children, voluntary sector, statutory sector, the type of work that you do. Your starting salary as a band 5 social worker straight out of here is in the region of, I think, 25,000, but you very quickly, so once you leave us, you do what is called an assessed year in employment, where you get a job and you basically get signed off at the end of that year that you've done a certain amount of work and competency and proven yourself competent, and then you become a band 6 that starts at 30,000. So pretty good starting salary. And excellent access to post-qualifying education, post-qualifying development and courses. And you can find out more about social work careers on the Northern Ireland Social Care Council website. So it's a really diverse range of social work that you can do. 96% of our graduates are in employment or further study within 6 months of graduating. I'd go so far as to say, if you want a job in social work you will get one at the end of your social work career, and most people do. Most people do go on, do their assessed year in employment, and work in the social work sector. Very few people leave us and don't work in social work. I feel like I've talked at you an awful lot. I think I need to hand over now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I don't know, possibly, Laura, are you able to take the slides down? And we'll let Kitty Ann talk to us. Kitty Ann, thanks for joining us. You are in your second year of your 2-year relevant graduate route, and you're about to start your final placement. So you're going to tell us a little bit about your experiences on the course.
Yeah. So my first degree was in psychology, and then I applied straight for the RGR and got in and started, and that was last year. Now I'm on my final year. I have to say I've enjoyed this degree much more than I enjoyed my initial one in psychology. More so than I actually thought I would. Like it's taught me a lot about myself and about my own kind of personal values, and it's really developed me as a person, I think. The course itself, there's a large amount of service user involvement. So there would be a lot of service users coming out and giving their experiences, which I think is so, so, so vital for us for in first year. When you're just coming in, you're nervous, you're not sure what to kind of make of everything. And you're having service users who've had good and bad experiences with social workers, and they're telling you, they're telling you how they like to be approached. They're giving all their feedback to help, mold future social workers and really improve on the social workers that are coming into the workforce as well. I have to say, so within the teaching, because it's RGR, my first semester we would have lectures in the morning and the tutorials in the afternoon, and I really found that the tutorials helped link what we were learning in the lectures to practice, because previously in my last degree I would have found it difficult to branch, whereas you're getting this support from the tutors in Queen's to kind of understand a lot of the theory, a lot of the knowledge, and how it actually applies to us in the job roles. And I find it so, so, so relevant to understanding, because the tutors are social workers. Everyone, they're able to give that experience, able to give their knowledge in a way that's understandable and you can really take in. I have to say that there would be quite a lot of guest lectures that come in, which I found amazing. In my first semester, it was amazing to hear from different lecturers. I think there was a lecturer from Florida that came in for 2 hours in the introduction model, and he was fantastic. It's very up to date in the knowledge that we're learning about. I find it more intense, but in a good way, because we are covering quite sensitive topics, and because you're reflecting your own, your own personal values, your lived experiences, it really does teach you a lot. But because you have that support from your personal tutors and from other students, I just love the degree, is the nicest way to put it. For placement, my first placement was in a children's safeguarding team. And I have to say, I've never worked with children before. All my experience was with, I was a carer in the community. So going into a placement with children's, I was very nervous, and I had no formal experience. And I have to say, I loved every single minute of it. My practice teacher was my on-site, and she was fabulous. I loved her. She was just so, so good, and Queen's was very supportive during the whole place, and being able to actually like sit in a chair and do your work and go out to families and do assessments, knowing, learning everything in Queen's and then put it to practice. It's so, so much more. It's so hands-on. I really, really enjoyed it. This year, because I'm in the final year, our modules are more tailored to specific service user groups, and I found it so, so, so interesting to kind of learn more about areas that I've not previously heard about or wasn't aware that even the social work role was needed. I'm trying to think. Some tips for preparing for the interview. My thing is that I'm a bit of a rambler, so back whenever I was applying, it was online and it was recorded. I'm not sure how it is now. I think it's still interview based. I'm just not sure if it's in person or recorded. But I think taking a second and taking a big breath before you start speaking and thinking of your answer or asking to repeat the question is very important, because that gives you that second to kind of, conduct yourself and realize what you're going to say. Some of the resources that I had went over was NISC. NISC's Learning Zone goes through the career in social worker. What is a social worker? It gives you tips to applying for the degree. And they also specify their standards of conduct and practice, which kind of basically gives you your skills, values, and ethics that you need in the role. There's also the Safeguarding Board for Northern Ireland. They have an app on your phone you can download, and it keeps you up to date on current issues and publishes kind of advice on safeguarding issues. I found that quite kind of interesting, and not that I used it in my interview, but it was interesting to be aware of going in just in case. I think that's as much as I can ramble right now. I just wanted to say also they've now increased the band scales for freshly newly qualified social workers, so it has increased now going into 2026, because it's starting to match England now. So that was that. Yeah.
Kitty-Ann, thank you so much. I knew that the salary had gone up. Do you know what it is now, Kitty-Ann, what you're starting?
Yes. So as a band 5, it's 31,000 pound and 49 pounds. To start off with, that's for going into 2026, and then for band 6, so after your AYE, it starts at 38,000 is what my mum works in the trust. That's how I'm kind of aware of this.
That's so much better. I sort of was aware that
yeah.
probably those I thought those salaries had been updated in these slides, but that is so much better. So 31 going up in your first year, and then goes up quite a bit for your second year. Kitty-Ann, thank you so much for giving us your insight into and your enthusiasm for the course. I think is really infectious as well. What do you think you would like to work at? Like, what's your going at the end of the degree, your aspiration?
I have to say, I previously wanted to work in mental health. Whenever I was in the community, I was working as a carer in the community. I was going into homeless. I was in homeless accommodation and dealing with like addiction services, and that was an area I was really interested in. And then going into children's safeguarding, I've kind of changed my mind, and I really, really do think I want to go into the Children's Gateway team. It's because my placement was fantastic, and I was field work, so I was going about everywhere, and I love going about places, and I love going out to families and helping families while also, doing child protection. But it was fantastic, and it's an area that I think I loved it. I don't know how to explain it. The feelings coming away like every day. It was 9 to 5, and I was finishing at 5 and being like, I can't wait for the next day just to actually get in and get my teeth into it, and just supporting as many people as I can. Like, I really, really loved it.
That's brilliant to hear, Kitty-Ann. That's brilliant to hear. So the Gateway team is a little bit like the social worker with the blonde hair and the ponytail that you saw in the video. She's saying, I'm going to contact these people now and let them know that there's been a referral made, and that somebody thinks that they need a social work assessment, and visit them to do that assessment and kind of do that pretty quickly. Kitty-Ann, thank you so much. So there's going to be some questions or comments for you if you can hang on. Kitty-Ann, sorry. I'm going to just take a few minutes before we finish to kind of talk you through Laura, would you share those slides again? I don't. Thank you. Just to talk you through a little bit about the selection process. But first I wanted to say about the Social Work Incentive Scheme in Northern Ireland. So if you are what they call domiciled in Northern Ireland, so if you are living in Northern Ireland, and you join the programme, let me just see if I can find the slide here. You are eligible to apply to the Department of Health for a bursary. So this is not something that you pay back. It's not a loan. It's something that is money that is given to you. And basically it means that for the 2 years of your degree, you get a payment of £4,500 basically as a bursary to you. It's paid in a couple of instalments, and you can find more information about that on the Department of Health website. I always have to say that it's under review, because they always say it's under review, but I literally have been saying that for the last 10 years. So I think it's not going anywhere. And so that is really great. And even though this is another degree, another undergraduate degree, it is eligible for student finance and student loans. So And Katie, I mentioned the selection process. So how you apply to our course and how you get onto our course is this, that you submit your UCAS application. The UCAS deadline has been brought forward. It's earlier in January this year. So do keep an eye on that. I think it's maybe the 14th or something. So do find out what the UCAS deadline is and make sure you apply within the deadline. We just screen you for eligibility based on your academic entry requirements and what you're anticipated to get in your degree. You'll be prompted to complete and return a consenting declaration. That's just a declaration of whether you've got any criminal convictions, etc., or any health issues. And then everybody who's eligible is invited to an interview, and that is now an in-person interview on campus here at Queen's in the School of Social Sciences, Education and Social Work. And that's about a 20-minute interview. You're interviewed by one of us academics, but also by somebody who is working out in a social work agency, and we interview you jointly. You're asked 4 questions. One is based on a sort of social work case scenario, and you're asked to think what a social worker might do in that case. And then other questions that prompt you to think about your own experience, like your own life, your own paid experience, your voluntary experience, your social work related experience, and show you understand something about the knowledge, skills and values that are important for social work. Having work experience is not a requirement for the course, okay? You do not have to have worked in a social care sector at all. It is amazing when people start to think about the life experiences that they've had that really help them think about what knowledge and skills and values they've developed through their own experience. It's amazing the different range of experiences that people draw on. You can, so ourselves at Queen's and Ulster University both provide the Bachelor in Social Work Relevant Graduate Route course. It gets you the same qualification. Obviously, the teaching is slightly different in both institutions, but it gets you the same qualification. If you wanted to apply to both institutions to kind of maximise your chances, if you would be happy to go to either of them, you can choose to do what we call share your application, and it means that you will have one interview either with Ulster or at Queen's, and you don't have to do 2 interviews. We're interviewing people between early February through to the end of March, and then we release our decisions, and hopefully the week after the Easter holidays we'll start releasing our decisions. So it's important that you know that, because sometimes people think, oh, I haven't heard back from my UCAS application, I wonder what's happening there, but you won't hear until after Easter. So that's our broad kind of framework for how we select students. There are more people apply than get places, than there are places. Okay, so it is a little bit competitive. Even though you have a degree, you could also apply to the undergraduate 3-year route if you wished. So if you felt that you really definitely social work is for you, you definitely want to place on this course next year, and you'd be happy to do a 3-year course, you can apply also for the undergraduate 3-year route. That's the UCAS code L500 and the RGR code is L501. So I've got 2 different UCAS codes. So like Katie Ann was saying, it's good to kind of think about how you would prepare for your interview. And as she said, think carefully, listen carefully to what the question is asking you. Take a big deep breath and then tell us as much as you can, okay? Just answer it fully. Do draw on your learning from your studies. Like anything you've learned from psychology, sociology, law, health and social care, whatever it is that you're studying, there will be something really relevant in that will help you answer your questions. Draw on your learning from any employment, volunteering or life skills that you've had. Do that anonymously. Don't be telling us all about a member of your family and naming them, okay? Be careful and respectful with people's private information. Do show us that you understand a little bit about what social workers do, okay? I've sort of talked you through that there. You can watch that video. But as Katie Ann has said, there is a whole section on the Northern Ireland Social Care Council website that talks about what social workers do. There's lots of videos and playlists about people talking about their work, talking about their jobs. If you know of a social worker, just invite them out for coffee and say, talk me through your day. Try and get if you know any students that are currently on our course, get them to talk you through that. When we send you an invitation to interview, we also send you a letter or an email that contains links to certain resources and certain documents. Okay. And so it tells you all about all this stuff. It helps you find the Northern Ireland Care Council's standards for social work students, etc. So I really encourage you, when you get that invitation letter, to work your way through those links, work your way through those resources, and just read over it. The interview is not an exam, okay? So it's not a test, it's not an exam. Those resources are just there to help you get your head into the space of social work, to help you really tune into and kind of get a sense of what social work's about, what's expected of social workers, what do you bring to social work, why is this the right profession for you, what is it that you think fits with your own particular value base or your own particular skills, and then you can tell us all about that. Think as well about current social issues and some of the challenges that people face in our society, because we want to see that you are tuned into that you have, like you heard me say there, that it's about our society and about social justice. So think about some of the challenges that people and certain groups of people in Northern Ireland are facing, and the reasons for that, and just kind of be aware from the media. So is this right for you? Well, if you've got a relevant degree, you need a 2-2 in your honours degree. You do not need previous experience, but you do need to feel motivated to help or empower people. Like, I don't know if we're expecting you to be quite as enthusiastic as Katie Ann is, because you haven't had the experience yet to get so enthused about it. But you do need some insight into social care and social work and what it is that you're actually applying for. And you do need to, in your own self, value diversity and want to promote social justice. So our top tips are: find out what social workers do, read through the resources that we've directed you to. If you can undertake voluntary work, or if you're doing voluntary work, that's great. And visit the NISC Learning Zone and explore their resources. There are a few social work textbooks here, okay? Right, we're not expecting you, again, it's not an exam, but if you're really interested, these are really introductory textbooks that gives you an insight into kind of the types of theories that we are drawing on. And here's the information. So the link to both of the course information on the course finder pages, the link to the Social Care Council's Learning Zone, the link to what social work is. There's a document about what social work is on the Department of Health website. There's a little booklet called So You Want to Be a Social Worker. That's really helpful. And then the standards of conduct and practice. So I think that's us. I'm just wondering if people have any questions or even comments that they'd like to make, either in the chat or to myself and Katie Ann.
I think there is
Will
a
we
question.
stop sharing the slides? Okay.
Yeah, there's just one question there from participant
Okay,
there in the chat.
I'll find the chat. Laura, do you want to stop sharing the slides and then we can see each other? Oh, Laura, thank you. You've been putting all the links to all the things that I've been mentioning on the website as I've been talking. Can you get the bursary if you got one before? Okay, so if you've done the nursing course and then the social work course,
I think it's a different bursary for nursing.
Yeah, it is a different bursary. So nursing has its own bursary and social work has its own bursary. I'm not sure that the two communicate with each other. So my inclination is to say yes, but you can look that up, or you could send the Department of Health a quick email if you wanted, but they are totally separate schemes. It's a different scheme. I wonder, can we find you the link here to Department of Health Social Work Incentive Scheme?
I'm trying to see if I can find it here.
I popped it in the chat there. Hopefully that's the right link, just above that question. So hopefully that's the right one if you just want to check.
Yeah. I think there is a whole big document with the T's and C's in it on this. It just says that you have to be domiciled in Northern Ireland, accepted onto full-time degree in social work course, and registered on the social work student part of the register.
I've got
Yeah,
the guidance
but
here, so I do.
oh yeah, okay, well done. I'll put the email here. I've just popped in the email anyway, that you could maybe send them a quick email. So it's the Office of Social Services at health-ni.gov.uk. So if you wanted to just send that quick query to them, they might be able to tell you. Katie-Anne, you don't think it says anything about a previous bursary?
No, not at all. No. Just checking here.
My sense is that you probably are eligible, and it probably doesn't matter that you had a
Yeah.
previous. Yeah. Does it say that?
It doesn't say anything if you've had a previous
Yeah.
bursary or anything, because I think it's different. This one's called
Yeah.
the it's the student incentive scheme, whereas I think nursing's called something different.
Yeah, I think that's
But
right. But it's not hard to send them off a quick email if you want to be double certain about that. Folks, is there any other questions or comments that people want to make? Is there anything that you'd like to know about the selection process or the process of applying? Well, good luck with your applications. I hope that you do consider applying for social work. Obviously, I am very passionate about social work. I have loved my time as a practitioner, and I have loved my time as a social work researcher and lecturer. And I would really encourage it. And, I mean, I always say to people that I would definitely encourage people to go into a career in social work. It is so varied. You have so much autonomy. It's so interesting. It is endlessly fascinating. It is really stressful and very busy, but endlessly interesting. And so I always say it's a great job to go into. So I hope you will consider applying for it. Katie-Anne, thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything final that you'd like to say to folks?
Yeah, I would kind of agree with, honestly, I would just go for it. It's like whenever I first initially applied, back when I was leaving school, I'd applied for social work and declined to do it and went for psychology, and then came back to do social work and have never not regretted my choice at all. I love every part that I've done. There's not one part I can even name that I haven't enjoyed. It's just fantastic. It's just the work you do, and it is so varied. And there's so many different avenues you can go into, and there's so many different social work roles that you don't realize actually play a part, or that are there. Um, and there's a lot of progression there, and there's this continuous professional development that you're working on yourself, which I think is amazing. And helping other people
Yeah.
is the biggest thing that I loved.
Yeah, and that's really rewarding, isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
I've put the link in there as well to School of Social Sciences Education and Social Work YouTube channel, because there's another couple of videos from another couple of our students talking about their social work degree there. One's undergraduate and one's relevant graduate. In addition to saying pretty similar things, to what Katie-Anne has said, which has been really helpful. So folks, thank you so much for coming. Laura, thank you very much for setting up this webinar. That's been really helpful. I imagine that you'll circulate the slides and the recording to people afterwards. And so folks, good luck with your applications. Good luck if you're finishing off essays or doing exams this semester. And I hope you all have a really lovely Christmas holiday.